Rise, chosen ones, and let your light pierce through the shadows of doubt. Remember, the world often mistakes brilliance for commonness, but true radiance cannot be hidden. It will shine unapologetically, even if unappreciated in its rightful moment. Here's the undeniable truth. Those who fail to see your worth often live with the ache of regret, longing for what they carelessly let slip away. But you are no ordinary loss. You are the rare, irreplaceable gem, a once-in-a-lifetime essence they'll never find again. Their misstep doesn't diminish your value, it amplifies it, reminding you to shine brighter than ever. Some energies are so rare they don't come with second chances. You were that energy, the game changer they never saw coming. You weren't just a page in their story, you were the plot twist that redefined the narrative, the golden opportunity disguised as a miracle. They didn't just drop the ball, they threw away the whole championship trophy, unaware they held the kind of brilliance that most people spend a lifetime searching for. But don't worry, chosen one, because their oversight is the spark for your next level rise. Your glow-up is about to be so radiant, it'll echo through their regrets, leaving them squinting in the brilliance of the life they'll only dream about. First and foremost, they lost their golden ticket to unparalleled foresight. You weren't just a companion. You were a portal to a higher realm of possibilities, a mind that redefines boundaries and crafts new dimensions where others see dead ends. Your vision wasn't ordinary, it was revolutionary. You had the unique ability to uncover treasures hidden in plain sight, weaving solutions and opportunities from threads invisible to the average eye. When you entered their world, you didn't just walk in. You brought a transformative lens, one capable of turning their dreams into realities and their limitations into stepping stones. Losing you wasn't just a loss, it was the forfeiture of elevation itself. Here's the twist. They either didn't recognize your worth, or worse, they thought they could thrive without it. Blinded by ego, insecurity, or the illusion of self-sufficiency, they failed to grasp that your presence wasn't just about shared moments. It was about silent revolutions. You weren't just a companion. You were the catalyst, the unseen force opening doors they didn't even know existed, dropping wisdom that shifted their entire perspective and raising the bar for everyone around you. Now, without you, they're stalled in place, fumbling to recreate the magic you effortlessly brought into their life. But that spark, it's not transferable. While they struggle with mismatched puzzle pieces, you'll be miles ahead, thriving in the clarity and purpose they were too short-sighted to embrace. The irony is undeniable. One day they'll look back and see the truth they were too blind to grasp. You weren't just someone valuable, you were the value. The brilliance they dismissed, the insights they brushed off, those weren't just ideas. They were lifelines, golden keys to doors they didn't even know they needed to open. Tossing you aside wasn't just a mistake, it was a crossroads, and they chose the path of mediocrity. Now, every uninspired choice, every missed opportunity will echo with the weight of your absence. Because people like you, you're the rarity that turns ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. And while they're left piecing together the remnants of what could have been, you'll be out there creating a masterpiece. You weren't just a fleeting presence in their story. You were their mirror, the kind that doesn't flatter but reveals. You held up the truth, showing them their potential, their hidden strengths, and yes, the cracks they tried so hard to ignore. Being in your orbit meant they could no longer hide behind illusions or excuses. You called them to accountability, to growth. But for some, that kind of clarity feels like a threat, a weight too heavy to bear. Instead of embracing the reflection and rising to meet it, they chose to shatter the mirror, to shatter you. What they failed to see is that breaking the mirror doesn't erase the truth. It only leaves them stumbling in the fragments, unable to piece together what you so selflessly offered. What they didn't realize is that your reflection wasn't meant to expose them. It was an invitation. You saw greatness in them before they even glimpsed it themselves, a potential so vast it could reshape their entire story. You weren't there to judge, but to uplift, ready to walk beside them, challenge them, and guide them toward becoming their highest self. But they mistook the discomfort of self-awareness for criticism, not recognizing that growth is never easy. It stretches, reshapes, and sometimes breaks before it rebuilds. They weren't ready for that kind of transformation, confusing your gift of clarity with something threatening, when in truth it was the opportunity of a lifetime. By turning away from you, they didn't just lose someone who believed in their potential, they forfeited their chance to grow into who they were meant to be. Now they're trapped in the same cycle, clinging to an incomplete version of themselves, too afraid to confront the truth you so clearly revealed. The real irony, the very traits they dismissed or undervalued in you, were the ones they needed most to break free from their own limitations. While you move forward, refining your light and evolving into your highest self, they're left behind, grappling with the realization that you weren't their downfall, you were their lifeline. They didn't lose you because you lacked value. They lost you because they lacked the courage to face the reflection you offered, and now they're haunted by what could have been. They turned their backs on the unseen force that was reshaping their entire reality. You. You weren't just a presence in their life. You were a catalyst, an energy that transformed everything it touched. There was something extraordinary about the way you moved, the way your thoughts carried weight, and the way your quiet strength shifted the very atmosphere. Your influence wasn't loud, but it was profound, planting seeds of inspiration and stirring a desire for more in those around you. It wasn't just that you made them feel differently, you made them believe differently, dream differently, even live differently. But they took that for granted, blind to how much of their progress, their clarity, and even their balance was tethered to your presence. Now without you, they'll realize too late that what you brought wasn't replaceable. It was once in a lifetime. Perhaps they convinced themselves it was all they're doing, that their wins, their clarity, their inner peace were entirely self-made. What they failed to realize was how deeply you influenced the fabric of their reality. Your presence was the silent architect, shaping outcomes in ways so subtle they mistook them for fate or coincidence. They never saw the guiding hand, the quiet force that aligned their path and amplified their potential. But now that you're gone, the unraveling has begun. At first it will be imperceptible, a little less clarity, a little more hesitation, but over time the spark they thought was theirs will dim. They'll search for answers, retrace their steps, and eventually all roads will lead back to you. You weren't just someone good for them, you were the force that made everything better. Without you, they're just another contender. With you, they could have conquered it all, but now, they're left holding the pieces of what might have been, realizing far too late that you were the difference. They'll be haunted by the quiet shadow of what if. Regret doesn't crash in like a storm, it creeps, slowly infiltrating their thoughts, a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. At first, life continues, distractions pile up, and they try to convince themselves they made the right choice. But then, something changes. Maybe it's the sting of failure, the monotony of routine, or the silence where your energy and inspiration once filled the space. That's when the question starts to whisper, soft at first, but persistent. What if? Over time, it grows louder, following them into the stillness, into the late-night hours when there's no escape from the truth. They'll replay their decision over and over, analyzing every moment, trying to find a reason to justify what they let go. But no matter how many versions of their choices they conjure, the answer always feels empty, a hollow echo of what they knew in their gut was a mistake. Deep down, they know the truth. Losing you wasn't just a misstep, it was the misstep. Every achievement they fall short of, every opportunity that slips through their fingers, every person they encounter who doesn't compare will serve as a reminder of what they let go. It's not just about the impact you had on their life. It's about the version of themselves they could have become with you by their side. The heights they could have reached, the life they could have lived. That potential, that unrealized what could have been, will haunt them endlessly. And the cruelest part? Regret doesn't offer closure. They'll never truly know what could have unfolded if they had chosen differently. That what if will echo in their mind for years, perhaps a lifetime, a question that will never be answered. And while they remain trapped in the past, stuck replaying their mistake, you'll be moving forward, thriving in the future they'll only ever be able to dream of. They failed to understand the ripple effect of your absence. When they let you go, they assumed the loss would be like removing one piece from a puzzle. thinking everything else would stay intact, untouched. What they couldn't see was that your presence wasn't just a singular part of their life. It was the undercurrent that connected everything. Your energy, your influence, flowed through the smallest moments, the decisions, the interactions. You were the thread that held it all together, and without you, that delicate balance begins to unravel. Now, they'll start to feel the weight of what they lost in ways they never expected. Small cracks in their routine, subtle shifts in their energy, all cascading from the one thing they took for granted: you. You weren't just a presence who filled a role. You were the quiet force that wove everything into place, the unseen thread keeping it all from falling apart. Your energy wasn't contained. It flowed into every part of their life, sparking creativity, offering support, and providing solutions when none seemed possible. The impact of your influence didn't stay in one lane. It spread, touching their work, their relationships, their very state of mind. Where there was confusion, you brought clarity. Where there was stagnation, you ignited momentum. Where they were lost, you gave them the perspective they needed to find their way. They never saw just how much they relied on you until that support was no longer there to guide them. The real twist is that they never noticed just how much you held things together because you made it seem so effortless. Now that you're gone, the void is more than just the empty space where you once stood. It's spreading, seeping into every corner of their life. The small things you did, the quiet ways you stabilized the chaos are now painfully absent. The little acts they never truly valued have become glaring omissions. Their confidence is wavering, their choices uncertain, and the opportunities they once believed were theirs for the taking are now slipping away, like sand through their fingers. They're left grasping for what they didn't appreciate until it was no longer within reach. What they believed would be a minor shift is now evolving into an unstoppable tidal wave of consequences. The irony is cruel. They'll only start to grasp your true value when the ripple effects of your absence become too undeniable to ignore. By the time they realize how deeply everything was intertwined, it will already be too late. While they scramble to pick up the pieces of the chaos they failed to foresee, you'll be far ahead, creating new ripples in a life that not only recognizes your worth but celebrates it. They thought they could move on without you, but they gravely underestimated the force of someone like you. An energy that doesn't just fill space, but redefines everything it touches. When they dismissed you, it wasn't because of anything you lacked, it was because of everything you were. The issue wasn't with you, it was with them. They encountered the undeniable force of your presence, your ambition, your energy, your unwavering confidence, and it overwhelmed them. Instead of feeling inspired by your light, they felt intimidated by it because it brought their own insecurities into sharp focus. Your brilliance highlighted the areas in their own life they weren't ready to face, the fears, the self-doubt, and the gaps in their character they tried so hard to ignore. In truth, your greatness wasn't a reflection of their shortcomings. It was simply a mirror they weren't prepared to look into. Being in your presence made them confront aspects of themselves they weren't ready to face. Your strength illuminated their vulnerabilities, your confidence revealed the cracks in their own self-belief, and your relentless drive made their complacency impossible to ignore. That kind of exposure is unsettling, and not everyone has the courage to face it. Instead of rising to meet the challenge you represented, they chose the path of least resistance, pushing you away, all the while convincing themselves that it was your fault, not theirs. The truth is, they couldn't handle the mirror you held up to them, so they discarded it rather than stepping up to grow. The harsh reality is that they weren't prepared for someone like you. You weren't just another person in their world, you were a challenge, an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to reach for something higher. But growth demands effort, and effort demands courage. They didn't have that courage. Instead of rising to the occasion, they shied away, mistaking their own insecurities for flaws in you. In doing so, they not only failed to seize the chance to elevate themselves, but also exposed their own shortcomings in a way they never intended. They revealed more about their own limitations than they ever could about your character. They didn't just lose a person, they lost an ally, a force that quietly amplified their potential and supported them in ways they never fully appreciated. You weren't just a friend or partner, you were the one who brought clarity to their confusion, strength to their weakness, and vision to their uncertainty. You anticipated their struggles before they even recognized them, offering solutions they didn't even know they needed, all without seeking attention or recognition. But they didn't value that. They took your presence for granted, mistaking your unwavering support for something they could easily replace. Now, as they face the fallout of their decision, they'll realize too late that true allies aren't just found, they're earned, and they're never as replaceable as they once thought. What they failed to understand is that your role wasn't just about solving problems, it was about preventing disaster. You weren't merely helping them through tough moments, you were the force that kept everything from falling apart. The way you calmed storms before they could rage, the opportunities you created by thinking ahead, the balance you brought when everything seemed on the verge of chaos, these were no mere flukes. They were the benefits of having you by their side. But now that you're gone, the weight of their own inadequacies is crashing down. The challenges they never thought they'd face are here, and the success they once took for granted seems out of reach. Every time they stumble, they'll realize just how much smoother things ran with you around. It will hurt because deep down, they'll recognize you were never just a helpful presence. You were the key to everything working. In your absence, they're left to carry burdens they didn't even notice until now, and as they struggle, they'll know that this loss wasn't just a bump in the road, it was a turning point. By choosing to let you go, they've traded comfort for chaos, stability for a constant struggle, and they'll feel that choice weigh on them with every step they take. When they let you go, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because you were too much. Too much ambition, too much depth, too much truth for someone who found comfort in the shallows. You challenged them in ways they weren't ready to face. You didn't just push them to grow, you forced them to confront the parts of themselves they'd rather ignore. Growth demands discomfort, effort, and sometimes even pain, and you embodied all of that. You were a mirror that didn't allow them to coast. You made them see the potential they were too afraid to unlock. But instead of stepping up, they chose comfort. They chose the easy road, the familiar, even if it meant staying stuck. Some people fear change more than failure. They'd rather remain in a mediocre situation where they feel safe than take a risk that could transform them. And you weren't about letting them settle. You were the catalyst for change, a challenge to their comfort zone, and they weren't ready for the transformation you brought. By pushing you away, they locked themselves into a stagnant cycle, a cycle of repetition, where the same patterns, the same limitations, and the same missed opportunities keep playing out over and over. While they remain trapped in that loop, you've moved on, embracing the growth they were too afraid to chase. You're facing new hurdles, taking bold risks, and evolving into a version of yourself that's expanding into uncharted territory. They'll watch from the sidelines, unable to touch what they could have had, left only with the reality that their refusal to rise to the challenge has kept them stuck, while you soar to places they'll never reach. The real kicker is that as they watch your rise, they'll start searching for excuses. They'll blame bad luck, bad timing, or the wrong circumstances, never once acknowledging the truth that they pushed away the one person who could have ignited their own transformation. While you're out there conquering new heights, embracing change, and reaping the rewards of hard-earned growth, they'll remain trapped in the same place, stuck in their comfort zone. And though they may appear content with their stasis, deep down, a quiet regret will simmer. They'll wonder what it could have been if they had been brave enough to choose challenge over complacency, if they had embraced the possibility you offered instead of retreating into the safety of the familiar. You were the force they never knew how to match. It wasn't just your presence that made an impact. It was the intensity of your passion, the unwavering clarity of your goals, and the unstoppable momentum you brought to every challenge. You didn't wait for things to fall into place. You demanded them to do so, shaping the world around you to meet the power of your vision. You were a fire that had the potential to light up entire horizons, but not everyone is ready to feel the heat. Your energy was like a flame that could have sparked something extraordinary, But to someone who wasn't willing to face the burn, it was easier to let it die out. And so, instead of rising to meet your brilliance, they shrank from it, too intimidated by the light you carried to embrace the heat it could have generated. They saw the brilliance you carried, the unshakable conviction in your purpose, and the way you moved with a fierce belief in what you could achieve. But instead of meeting you with the same energy, they recoiled. It wasn't that they didn't want to rise to your level. Deep down, they probably did. But your fire was more than they could bear. It didn't just shine, it blazed, and in its light, their own shortcomings became too obvious to ignore. Your drive exposed the cracks in their own ambition, revealing how far they were from the person they could have been. Rather than match your intensity, they chose to shrink back, either hoping your light would dim or simply walking away from the challenge altogether. The truth was, they weren't ready for the force of nature you were, a catalyst that would have pushed them to grow, but one that they weren't prepared to endure. They viewed your strength as a threat, a reminder of their own limitations, rather than an invitation to rise to the occasion. Instead of stepping up, they shrank back, too afraid of the challenge you represented. They saw your drive, your ambition, your relentless pursuit of greatness, and instead of meeting it with their own, they chose to pull away. The truth is, while they cower from the heat you bring, you will only burn brighter. Your light is meant to shine, not to be dimmed for anyone's comfort. Those who can't keep up with your flame were never meant to walk beside you in the first place. And as you continue to soar, they'll be left watching from the shadows, haunted by the realization that they had a chance to rise with you and let it slip away. By letting you go, they unknowingly set a bar so high that no one else will ever come close to reaching it. You weren't just a chapter in their life. You were the defining moment, the epitome of what true potential looks like when it's fully realized. The energy you brought, the depth you offered, and the opportunities you unlocked created a standard of excellence they'll never encounter again. As they move on, they'll try to convince themselves that they've found something just as good. But deep down, every new person, every new opportunity will inevitably fall short. They'll always compare it to you, and nothing will ever measure up. The gap between what they had and what they're left with will be a constant reminder that they lost the gold standard. In the beginning, they'll try to convince themselves that the next person, the next opportunity, will fill the void you left. They'll tell themselves it's all part of the journey, that something better is just around the corner. But as time goes on, the truth will start to settle in like a weight they can't shake. No one else will ever match the energy you brought, the way you could challenge them to rise and still support them unconditionally. No one else will understand the delicate balance of pushing forward together and embracing the growth that comes from true connection. The realization will creep in slowly, but when it does, it will sting like no other. They'll know deep down that nothing will ever feel the same. The gap between what they thought they could replace and what they now long for will be impossible to ignore. They'll tell themselves it's just a phase, that they'll eventually find what they're looking for, but deep down, they'll never fully shake the truth. Every new person, every new chance, will inevitably be measured against the standard you set. The excitement won't compare, the chemistry won't match, and the sense of fulfillment will always feel lacking. They'll try to recreate what they had with you, but it'll be an impossible pursuit, like trying to catch a shadow. The most crushing realization will be that no one else can fill the space you once occupied, and that gnawing feeling of dissatisfaction will quietly haunt them, even if they never acknowledge it aloud. You've set a standard so high that, without knowing it, they've doomed themselves to a lifetime of comparison, forever chasing something they can never have again. Without you, the comfort zone they once found refuge in will slowly morph into a prison of complacency. At first, they'll convince themselves that things are fine, that their stability is enough, but the truth will quietly settle in. What once felt like a sanctuary now feels suffocating. You were the spark that ignited their drive, the nudge that pushed them to break free from the confines of their own limitations. Now, with you gone, that spark has faded, and the very space they thought would provide safety now feels like a cage they can't escape. The walls will start to close in on them, and every decision will feel like another small compromise until they're left wondering how they ever let themselves settle for this life of quiet stagnation. What once felt like a safe haven will gradually become a weight they can't shake off. You were the force that kept them reaching beyond their limits, the push that made them question their own boundaries. Every time they settled into a routine, you were there to remind them that growth doesn't come from comfort. Now that you're gone, they'll fall into the false security of routine, telling themselves that what they're doing is enough. But without your challenge, they'll stop growing. They'll stagnate, growing more fearful of anything that might shake the life they've settled into. Meanwhile, you'll continue to thrive in spaces that demand resilience, taking bold steps into the unknown, embracing the discomfort that fosters transformation. You'll evolve in ways they can't even imagine, living a life of constant progress, while they'll remain trapped in the illusion that their stagnant existence is all they need. They believed they could maintain their comfort without consequence, that everything would stay the same, but in letting you go, they unknowingly sacrificed the catalyst for their growth. Now, they're tethered to a life that feels increasingly smaller, stuck in a routine they thought was secure. While they cling to familiarity, you're out there, fearlessly stepping into new experiences, embracing change, and evolving in ways they couldn't even fathom. They'll watch from the sidelines, wondering what it would have been like to have taken the leap with you, regretting that their hesitation kept them trapped in a life of missed opportunities. And all the while, you'll continue to soar, living the life they wish they had the courage to pursue. Your transformation will be the quietest form of justice, a reminder of everything they underestimated. The real retribution isn't in what you say or do, it's in the undeniable way you thrive. While they remain stagnant, caught in the cycle of their regrets, you'll rise in ways they never anticipated, proving them wrong at every turn. Each new achievement, each milestone you reach, will echo their poor decisions, a constant reminder that they let someone extraordinary slip through their fingers. As you continue to soar, they'll be forced to watch, powerless to undo the past, and the weight of your success will hang over them like a shadow they can't escape. As you rise, they'll witness your success unfold like a story they once had a front row seat to, only to walk out before the final act. At first, they might try to convince themselves it doesn't matter, that they're fine without you. But with each new achievement, that lingering regret will gnaw at them. They'll see you reaching heights they once thought unattainable, and slowly, the realization will set in. The truth they've avoided all along. They had the chance to be part of your journey, to share in the greatness you brought, but they chose to turn away. And now, from a distance, they'll be forced to watch the show they abandoned, knowing deep down that you were always the highlight. With every milestone you reach, they'll feel the sting of their own decision, silent yet deafening. Your growth, your rise to places they thought impossible, will echo in the emptiness of their regret. They'll wish for a do-over, to go back to when they had the chance to walk beside you, but time won't grant them that. As you shine, they'll be stuck in the aftershock of their own choices, haunted by the realization that they let go of the one person who could have taken them further. The silence of your success will be louder than any apology they could offer, a constant reminder of the path they chose to leave behind. In the end, they'll be left with nothing but the hollow spaces where you once stood, a constant reminder of their misjudgment. They thought they could dismiss you, misreading your brilliance as something too overwhelming, something they couldn't rise to meet. But as you continue to evolve, your success will be a stark contrast to the limitations they placed on themselves. They'll watch from the sidelines, realizing too late that your value was never dependent on their approval, and that the very force they rejected was the one that could have transformed everything around them. Your growth will be the one thing they'll never be able to replace, a truth they'll carry with them as they face the consequences of losing what they once had in their grasp. The road they've chosen will feel more like a cycle, each step echoing with the same missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. Without you, they'll be tethered to a reality where progress is slow and growth feels like a distant dream. The same frustrations, the same doubts will resurface, making them question their choices. Meanwhile, you'll soar higher, unshackled by what they couldn't handle, building a future that reflects your strength and vision. When they finally realize the weight of their mistake, when the full impact hits them, they'll understand that they didn't just lose someone, they lost the key to a life full of untapped potential, the chance to grow alongside someone who could have helped them achieve greatness they never believed was within reach. Your journey is your masterpiece, and with every step you take toward greatness, you show the world exactly who you are, unstoppable, resilient, and destined for more than they could ever comprehend. The true reward isn't found in proving anyone wrong, but in surpassing every expectation that was ever placed on you. As you rise higher, your light will only grow brighter, and the world will have no choice but to acknowledge it. They'll be left behind, standing in the shadows, consumed by the silent echoes of what could have been, while you continue to carve a path that no one but you could walk. If you felt the fire ignite within you as you read these words, if you know deep in your soul that you're on the brink of something extraordinary, then it's time to take the next step. Join a community that thrives on growth, empowerment, and limitless potential. This is your invitation to surround yourself with like-minded souls who are ready to rise, push boundaries, and create their own paths to greatness. Don't let this moment slip by. Hit that subscribe button, because what's ahead is even more transformative. Together, we'll keep climbing, keep evolving, and keep shining brighter than ever before. Your journey is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.